From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And
things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us!
Deliver us.
Hello, spooks and spookettes. CountDrahoon here, and this evening I present to you a post-Christmas Christmas horror film review. Stop. Assuming that I am able to get this video out by January 7th, technically this counts as a Christmas time Christmas movie review. You see, if you go according to the mainline church calendar, that's the Catholics, the Orthodox to a lesser extent, Lutherans and Anglicans, Christmas isn't a day. It's a whole season that lasts for about 12 days. You know the Christmas carol. On the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. It all comes from that. So Christmas lasts from December 25th through January the 7th. So if this video is out by January the 7th, this counts as a Christmas review. So there you go. You had no idea you were going to learn so much about church history from a vampire, huh? Well, stranger things have happened. But before I go into all of that, let me take care of the castle-keeping notes. If you frequent CountDrahoon Presents, thank you for watching my channel. If you haven't already, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to get updates about any upcoming videos. And if you want to take your support an extra step further, might I suggest becoming a patron through our Patreon page. If you pledge $5 a month, it will get you exclusive access to our private Facebook group known as the Count's Lounge Lizards, and you will get a shout out in each video if you join the ranks of the undead along with Zach Robinson and Kova Gentry. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, let us get right into the heart of the matter, and hopefully you won't feel the need to drive a stake through it. This evening's review covers an animated heavy metal horror Christmas feature-length film brought to you by creators Michael Neel and Greg Ansin. The title of this picture, Infinite Santa 8000.
Sorry, guy, but you've been naughty.
The film takes place 8,000 years into the future, where the world has devolved into a post-nuclear dystopia where monsters, mutants, and robots roam the earth. Jolly old Saint Nick has managed to survive the madness and chaos of this new world, although slightly more modified as a half-robot. He seems to use it for his advantage, fighting for his supper, and ultimately using it to prolong his life. Despite not being able to deliver much presents nowadays, he seems to be in very good spirits, living in his own ranch with his robotic reindeer, and Martha, a cybernetic female whom he has befriended and rescued from a previous excursion. She loves to listen to him recount tales of Christmases past and how the world was before it fell apart. She is the daughter that Santa never had. But unbeknownst to our red-suited hero, dark forces are on the move. In the middle of the night, Martha is abducted by a sinister bunny rabbit. Santa is able to pursue the bad bunny in his jet-propelled sleigh, and he rescues Martha. The bad bunny falls to his death in the canyons below, and he passes on before he is able to reveal who he is working for. The bunny is the henchman of a disfigured mad scientist known as Dr. Shackleton, who has been coveting Santa's DNA for quite some time to use for his own experiments to create a super mutant army to conquer the world. He's also a little salty at Claus for making Martha one of the good guys and also taking out the self-destruction mechanism that was implanted inside of her. Shackleton goes full force and sends a wave of cybernetic tanks that look just like Martha to capture her and bring her to the lair. Martha's DNA is extracted in order to see what exactly Santa's been up to with her, and Santa breaks in trying to rescue her, but he himself is also captured. Once Martha's DNA is extracted, she is essentially kicked to the curb and sent to be made into shrapnel. While bound, Santa's DNA is also extracted, but he manages to use his magic to break his binds and rescue Martha just in the same nick of time. You like what I did there? However, they don't get far. Shackleton sends the full force of his army, complete with more cybernetic tanks, flying monsters, and a giant Easter bunny. Despite their best efforts, the giant Easter bunny rips Santa, Martha, and the reindeer apart. Shackleton assumes that he has finally won. He manages to successfully fuse the DNA of Santa with his mutant army, and plans to annihilate the rest of the world and recreate it in his own image. But first, he must get some beauty rest. And while he's asleep, one of the cyborg tanks takes pity on Santa. She helps Santa fix himself, and then makes a deal with her that if she helps him repair Martha, she will receive her very first Christmas present. Well, they are able to rebuild Martha, and she finally gets her first Christmas present, which happens to be a snow globe with a lovely Christmas tree in it. The trio decide to take the fight to Shackleton and his new army. They rev up the sleigh and head back to Shackleton's lair. Santa is able to sneak into the cages of the mutant army and plant grenades in the shape of Christmas presents. He also tries to bribe the rest of the cyborg tank girls with Christmas presents of their own, hoping that it'll have the same effect that it did with the other tank cyborg girl, for lack of a better word. However, the alarm is sounded and Santa must fight his way through a maze of monsters and mutants, while Martha and the other tank cyborg girl have to fend off more flying monsters and the giant Easter bunny. While fighting in the maze of monsters, Shackleton emerges, infused with the DNA of Santa, and also boasting his own Santa suit, which makes him equal to or possibly more powerful than Santa. It seems that Shackleton has the best of him until the bombs go off and kill most of the mutant army. It seems that the Christmas present bribery worked. The girl cyborg tanks switch sides. They burst through the doors carrying the disassembled pieces of the giant Easter bunny and manage to kill the rest of the mutant army. While Shackleton is in a weakened state, Santa finally finishes him off with a ninja-style Christmas tree-shaped knife, and all seems right with the world. Santa, the cyborg tank girl, which I'll call Martha 2.0, Martha, the robotic reindeer, and the rest of the cyborg tank army head back to Santa's ranch, where they have a wonderful Christmas celebration. If you followed my content for any number of years, the name Michael Neel may sound familiar. That's because he is a friend of mine and was a guest on my Interviewed by a Vampire segment many years ago. On that segment, we discussed the web series that he and Greg had called Infinite Santa 8000. What he's done with this film is he's essentially taken the web series episodes and re-edited them with scenes that were previously deleted for the show, and it has been re-released on Blu-ray through Synapse Film. I also forgot to mention another friend of the show who worked on this film, associate producer Jessica Dwyer. Many years ago, she lent her short story Red Brew to be dramatically read by the talented Jessica Felice, which we featured on Feature of Fright several years ago. I was a fan of the web series when it first came out, and I'm happy to see that this story still holds up after all these years. Who in their right mind would fuse heavy metal, Christmas, and gory horror all together in one animated feature? The horror element in this film is not subtle at all. The kills in this movie are brutal, bloody, and quite visceral. Despite the childlike nature of some of these characters, this film is not intended to be a children's Christmas movie. This one is a gore fest for true horror enthusiasts. I love how on one hand with Santa we get the traditional icon that the world knows and loves, but we also get this anti-hero side of him where he repurposes his jolly catchphrases and props into instruments of death and destruction, and witty action catchphrases that he repurposes to put some serious hurting on his enemies. Sometimes his catchphrases and verbiage do come off a bit corny, but I think that's kind of the fun of it. I wholly respect the process of 2D animation. We don't get to see it much anymore, and it is a very long and arduous process, but I respect Michael and Greg for wanting to go this direction, and it's a truly beautifully illustrated film. I love the designs of these characters, particularly with the robot eyes for Santa and the cyborg tanks, Santa's stiff robot arms. I even love the look and design of Shackleton. It fascinates me to look at Shackleton's face, how it's basically stretched out and barely hanging on with some staples. And then that steel mouth guard that he has over his face, it's so haunting and really well done. I don't think I have any real critiques of this movie, but there were a few things that were a bit unsettling for me. For one thing, I found Martha to be really creepy. I'm glad that Santa took her in and taught her to be a good person, because I don't think anybody else would have wanted to. I don't know if it was a creative choice or a budgetary choice to have the same voice actors who played Martha also play Shackleton. There were times during the film where I was a little confused as to whether or not Shackleton was a man or a woman, but in hindsight I think that the high-pitched tenor voice actually worked for the character. Shackleton was so evil and so mangled up, it was a wonder that he was even human at all. All in all, for horror fans, and particularly for fans of the Christmas horror subgenre, this is a great film. It's a perfect encapsulation of the original series and should be a new tradition for horror fans around Christmas time. I am so proud of Michael and Greg for their director's cut, and like I mentioned before, the film is available on Blu-ray. I got mine, so be sure to get your copy of Infinite Santa 8000 on Blu-ray, and you can purchase it through the link here below. Support indie film, support indie horror, and protect physical media. Great job once again, Greg and Michael, and I hope you have all enjoyed my review of Infinite Santa 8000. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have, but be sure to tune in next time for the next video right here on CountDrahoon Presents. Until then, always remember that as far as things go when things go bump in the night, there are such things.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
From ghoulies and ghosties.
And long-leggedy beasties.
And
long-legged
beasties.
And
things that go bump in the night. Good Lord! Deliver us!